Awesome. Okay, so I am Tiffany Register. I am the career coach here in the Career Center. And I know we have CHSS and CPS on the call today, which means that some of the information I go over, it may be redundant to some of you, but that's okay. If I do cover something that you don't understand or that you want more clarity on, please feel free to put up the hands up symbol. And then Rainisha and Heidi, if you guys see a hand up and I miss it, please let me know so I can stop. I want to make this as interactive as possible. So we'll go ahead and get started. So today's topic is going to be over career readiness as well as career steadiness. So that just means preparing for the job, but also maintaining the job once you get it. Now, as a reminder, we do have two career centers on campus, but we are located in the one main building on the fourth floor, and we're located right next to the library. We do presentations, we do workshops, but we also assist you guys individually with career coaching. And we can discuss a number of different topics from resume writing, LinkedIn building, job search strategies, preparing for grad school, you name it, we can help you with it. We are in the office every Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. And we also have drop-in hours Monday through Thursday from 3 to 5. And you have the option of dropping in either in person or via Zoom. And this is our QR code for that. Now, before we get into everything, I just want to kind of recap a few things that we did discuss last time because it is still important to remember. So before you prepare for the job that you want, you always want to know your story. Everybody's story is going to be different. So that means, why are you choosing the major that you're choosing? Why are you interviewing or applying for the job that you're applying for? And basically, why are you here in the first place? And then you want to be able to tie your story into what the company needs. And we'll talk about that in a few. Always have some type of elevator pitch prepared. And this is just about a 1 minute to or 30-second to 1 minute spiel on who you are as a professional and what you bring to the table. You want to always beforehand research the job market trends that are specific to your industry. So not only do I want you to pay attention in class, do well, visit your advisors, visit your academic success coaches, visit us, but you want to also do your own research so that you know what you have to look forward to in your industry. You always want to network. Networking is important, not just in person, like when you attend career fairs and all of these different things, but you can also network virtually through the biggest one that we use is LinkedIn. The more people you connect with, the more resources you're going to have and the more opportunities you're going to be privy to. All of this information is really helping you build what we call your personal brand. And your personal brand is just who you are and what you bring to the table. So there's a number of people that are majoring in the same thing that you're majoring in, but there's something unique about you. Find out what that is and be able to speak on that. And then once you've done all this work and you start applying for jobs, you always want to tailor your resume and your cover letter to the job that you're applying for. Any questions about that? Okay. All right. So here's a few job search tips. Always research. Know exactly what you want out of your career, and then create a plan for yourself to actually get there. So that means creating short-term goals as well as long-term goals. So that could look like, when I first graduate, I want to do one particular job or two particular jobs, or I'm willing to do some type of entry-level job that will lead up to my ultimate goal and plan. You also want to study, so learn the skills that's needed for the job. You need to know what skills are needed because you can't speak on why you're qualified for a job if you don't even know what they're looking for. And if you do research the skills and you realize that you don't really have the skills they're looking for, then you can start working on building those skills now before you actually start job searching. I've already talked about networking, but when you network, the whole point is not to just say hello to people, but you're introducing yourself to professionals and you're letting them know what you want, and you're asking questions so that you can gain insight on what it looks like to be professional or what steps you need to take to get there. Attending career fairs, which we always email y'all about, is a really, really good way to network because even if you're not looking for a specific company that we have at the career fair, you can still learn to practice your elevator pitch when you're talking to people. You can find out what opportunities different companies have just through conversation. And then if you are interested, you have the ability to follow up with employers about their opportunities. Because I promise you, employers are more likely to hire people that they've made face to face contact with than somebody who's just a name on a piece of paper. Build your portfolio, which is basically your cover letter, your resume, and your reference list, and whatever else is needed for your particular career path. So if you're like an art student and you're trying to go into photography, then you can actually build a portfolio specific to the work that you're trying to showcase, and so on and so forth. So everybody's portfolio will look different, but you do want to have the basics already in place. That way, when an opportunity presents itself, you're already ready and you don't have to get ready. Now, I want to reiterate the skills that employers want. An employer is, they want to know what skills you have because that's why they're hiring you in the first place. Every job description is telling you what they're looking for, and it's your job to align what they're looking for with who you are as a person. Now, what they're looking for, meaning the employer, that's going to vary depending on the industry, the position, and or the company. But some of the top skills that all employers look for is critical thinking, communication, leadership, professionalism, teamwork, technology, equity and inclusion, career and self-development. When you can critically think, that shows that you can resolve issues within the workplace, and those issues are not always directly related to the population of people that you're working with, your customers, clients. Critical thinking is something that's used in executing your daily tasks. And sometimes you also have to think critically when you're dealing with difficult people in the workplace because that is a real thing. But when you can think critically, you're more likely to resolve problems in an effective way. Communication is, pretty self-explanatory, but communication isn't just telling people what you want or what you think. It's also being able to read the cues of the people on your team, being able to know when is the appropriate time to speak. So sometimes when you want to express your ideas, you have to pay attention to when is okay to start expressing your ideas. Um, Leadership is something that I think a lot of people assume has to be related to a job title. So if you're a manager or you're like a coordinator or something, then now you're a leader. But really, leadership is how you show up and how you serve every single day. You can be a leader in your studies right now in class. You can be a leader in the organization that you're a part of. And you don't have to hold a leadership role to be a leader. Professionalism is something that I think we're losing sight of. And I'm going to talk more about that later. But professionalism is still important no matter what generation we're in. How you speak to people, how you send emails, how you show up or don't show up for things that you've assigned yourself to, how you carry yourself, how you speak, how you manage difficult situations. All of that is a part of professionalism. Teamwork is also important. Even if you have a job that is independent, there's still people that have to help get a goal accomplished. So if the project that you're on is only for you, there's still somebody who has to review the project, approve the project in order for the next steps to take place. So you have to be a team player, which means sometimes things are not going to go your way and you don't pitch a fit in the middle of the workplace. You learn how to communicate and you learn how to work with people who don't look like you. Technology is always on the rise. Um, if you're out of touch with what's going on with Microsoft Word, Excel, and different software systems, so on and so forth, then it doesn't hurt to brush up your skills. You can get on LinkedIn and take training courses to get new skills or learn new skills about different things. Um, and a lot of times, I'll be honest, employers are not as patient with training and teaching you on the job. A lot of times, they want you to come in already knowing or having at least the basics of things. Equity and inclusion is something that I know, people are afraid to talk about, but it really is just being culturally competent. And even when we don't understand someone who doesn't look like us, pray like us, or speak like us, we still have to be respectful to those people. So if you are dealing with someone or a situation in which you feel like there's some type of maybe cultural issue, it's best to ask questions than it is to make assumptions. So if you don't understand something, ask questions so that you can seek understanding. And then, of course, career and self development is something that basically is just saying to always continue to brush up on your skills. So don't think that you're ever going to get to a point to where you know everything there is to know about something. Always be open and ready to learn new skills and gain new abilities. Does anybody have any questions about skills? Okay. Now let's move on to interviewing. So interviewing is, well, first of all, let me say this. If you have made it to the point of an interview, congratulations, because that means the employer is interested in you. You always have to apply before you get an interview. So if you've made it to this point, then they already have their eyes on you. The interview is what leads to the job. So the interview is very important. But an interview is not just for the employer, the interview is also for you. So for when it comes to the employer, the reason they interview you in the first place is to find out why they should hire you instead of someone else. They also want to know what can you do for them and also what can you do for their employees. So they want to know, can you fit the company culture? It's not just about knowing everything and being able to do the job. It's also about having the right attitude. Can you fit in with the company? Would they want to work with you every day? That's important. If you are not someone who likes to communicate, or if you're not someone who is open minded and can consider alternative options outside of your own, then you are going to be someone who's difficult to work with. So if that is something you struggle with, just acknowledge it and work on it before you get into the workplace. Now, when it comes to the interview being beneficial for you, you're there to sell your strengths and your skills to the employer through basically telling a story. And that story is your story. Where have you been? What have you done? And why are you a perfect fit for the job? You're also there to make a lasting impression. So if you just become like a monotone robot in the interview, then they're not going to remember you. You're not going to stand out. You have to reiterate your skills to them. You have to tell them where you've been, what you've done, and you have to remind them that you can do the job and tell them how. And then also, this is a piece that a lot of people miss. It's important for you to check the temperature of the company, just like they're checking your temperature, because you want to know if that company is a good fit for you as well. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth in a few. It's important, I say this all the time, you have to do your own research. Research the company that you have the interview with. and research the industry that you're in. Because a lot of times you're learning the language of the industry, the verbiage that they use, and knowing this information can help you sell yourself and also perform better in the job. You definitely want to study the job description, because the job description is the cheat sheet. They're telling you what they're looking for. And sometimes we apply for a lot of jobs and we honestly forget the job that we're applying for. And if you are someone who forgets things like that, it will show in the interview. So always brush up on the job description before you go into the interview so that you can be reminded of what they're looking for. So when they ask you those questions, like tell me about yourself, you're able to speak on who you are as it relates to what they need. Know your skills, how they relate, and also it's important to research the salary range, because there are instances where people don't get jobs because they ask for unreasonable amounts of money for a position. If you don't, I understand that when we go to school and we make that sacrifice for 4 or more years to get that degree, we don't want to be lowballed when we get out and start interviewing for jobs. But keep in mind that how an employer chooses whether or not they want to hire you is not just based on your degree, it's also based on your experience as well as your skills. And so even with a degree, sometimes you have to be willing to start from the bottom and work your way up. And here's a tip also. And I haven't really had this issue, but I know that it can be an issue. Try not to lead the interview with, well, what do y'all pay? Because that's not, they're going to tell you how much they pay. Sometimes it's not mentioned in the first interview, because a lot of times the first interview is the preliminary interview. They're just checking your temperature to see if you really understand the job, you really want to do the job and can do the job. So try to let the employer bring up the salary, but know the range. So if they do ask you, you can actually quote something that's within an appropriate range for that position. And make sure that you know the absolute minimum that you will accept, because this is something that I went through when I first graduated. You jump out of school and you're ready to just get paid the most. And then you go through interview after interview after interview, and you start to feel like, okay, well, maybe I'm not worthy enough for what I'm asking for. And then you start getting hungry and you start accepting whatever is thrown at you. Don't lowball yourself, but also know the range so that you can pick something somewhere in the middle, and go from there. And we could talk more about that later. I see somebody has a question. Lachey, go ahead.
Hey everyone, good evening. So you touched bases on the expectations post graduation and different things along those lines. So based on my degree, I already make more than what a person coming out of school makes, because I'm a person where I've been in corporate America over 15 years. I just switched industries. So how does that work?
So so you're saying that you have working experience, but the degree you're pursuing now is in something a little bit different?
Okay, so let's say for instance, based on what it's saying, let's say it's 65, 75. I was making that like 3 years ago.
So is it,
And so that's not where I am now.
but what you've been doing, is it the same thing you're in school
Mhm.
for now?
Yes and no. So some of the skills that I'm using now are transferable to, like, I'm an analyst for an oil and gas company. So some of those skills will be transferable. And then I also am maintaining an internship with my sorority, law and legals intern. And I'm a political science major with a minor in legal studies. I'm just trying to figure out what's the best route, and when, because my time for renegotiations is coming up with my current employer.
Okay. So when you're tailoring that resume to the job, and you're, first of all, I would say, because you have so many years of experience, apply for jobs that are within the pay range that you're looking for. And I know sometimes it's not posted, but when you do the research and you find out what the range is, you can kind of get an idea. The key is to tailor the resume you're tailoring those transferable skills in the previous experiences that you've had so that on paper you will not only have the working experience, but you will have the degree to match. And that will put you at a place to where you can negotiate. And a lot of times negotiation is really simply stating what you want. Sometimes employers want you to go a little bit more in depth, but I've always negotiated my pay. And I just simply told them based on my years of experience in doing whatever matched with my education, I feel that my pay range falls more within this, whatever the number is. Um, so
Okay.
that's how I would handle it. But
Okay.
you have to be okay, like I said before, know the minimum that you'll accept because keep in mind if a company has a budget, they're going to do their best
Right.
and have to pay you the max if they can. But if you come to the table with all your I's dotted and all your T's crossed, then you have no reason not to request the amount that you deserve. And don't be afraid to ask for it.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Good question. Thank you for that. Guys, don't be afraid to ask questions because your questions help other students as well.
I have a question in the chat.
Okay.
It says, what type of question should we ask to prepare for the interview? Like what should be asked in the interview to the employers?
So I'm actually going to touch on that in a minute. But so you have to know what you're looking for out of an employer. And those are the type of questions that you ask. So for example, I always like to ask, what are your expectations in the next blank blank, meaning the position title that you're looking to hire? That way I know what type of person they're looking for. And I can be honest with myself and say, hey, I either have this or I don't. I also like to ask, what will the training process be like? Because even when you have experience in an industry, you still may not know how that particular company operates. So training is important. It doesn't always have to be an official training, but you still want to know how the company is preparing you for the role. Another question I like to ask is, I try to build a rapport with the interviewer. So I'll ask like, you know what, how long have you been with the company? And then if it's been for an extended amount of time, I'll ask them what's something that you know now that you wish somebody would have told you before you started this role. And these questions are challenging, not in a unprofessional way, but remember, we're checking their temperature to see if they're a good fit for us as well. Let's see, I can go all day with questions. I always like to ask, what is the next steps in the interviewing process so that I know am I gonna have to go through 15 more of these interviews? Are you guys looking to hire someone within a week? That way I know my wait time, so I'm not sitting back, not knowing what's going on. Yeah, that's just a few. But really the questions that you're asking is questions tailored at what is this role gonna look like? Are there opportunities for growth if that's what you want? And how are they going to support you? And you can ask them about, their company culture as well. So, and you don't have to word it like that because wording is also important. You can find out more about what you need without using the exact words of things. I remember a time where I asked a question. I wanted to know about diversity and inclusion within the company. And so my question to them was, what strategies does your company implement as it relates to equity and inclusion? Because that's something that matters to me. Does that help you, Joycelyn? Okay. Somebody said questions for the manager toward the end. Is that something I don't know about?
I think it's just an extension question from what Jocelyn had asked.
Okay. David, did I answer your question? Yeah, I hope you can hear me. And I see somebody asked, will they be able to get these questions in a PDF? I actually don't have it written down. All this is off the top of my head. Your best bet would be to schedule an appointment with me or Camille, whoever your assigned career coach is. And we can work with you individually and we can create questions that are related to your industry or what you're looking for. And I also think they're recording this, so you might be able to go back through the PowerPoint presentation and hear all the questions. Okay, somebody else also asked, we should have these questions ready before the interview. Yes, yes, yes. And I'm gonna go over that in a minute too. David said, how would you best describe your management style? That's a good question. Yes. And pay attention to the employer when they're answering. Don't just listen when people talk. Pay attention to their body language, pay attention to their eyes, pay attention to their tone, and just really just listen when someone is answering a question. For new graduates without internship experience, where would you recommend we start, especially in fields that require prior experience? So that's a long, not a long question, but we would have to look at your experience specifically, because a lot of times you have experience that you don't realize you have. Experience isn't always paid. There's a way to expound on your educational experiences that can make you stand out on the resume. You can also expound on relevant projects that you're doing in class related to whatever industry you're going in. That can also showcase your ability. But keep in mind that honestly, employers want people with experience, and it doesn't always have to be directly related. But like the other student mentioned, highlight your transferable skills. And I can actually show you guys how to do that. So you'd have to schedule an appointment so we can tailor something specific to you. Did I miss anybody's question? Oh, I did miss a question. Is there a template or outline for an elevator pitch? Yes, yes. Joycelyn, if you can email me, I'll send it to you. But if you'd rather actually talk about it in person, we can do that as well. Just email me and I'll have my email at the end. And you just let me know how you want to proceed. Any other questions? And this, Ramisha, is registered T at UHD. Register T.
I didn't put that. I'm so sorry. You do
That's
have another question.
Laura.
Where'd it go? I'm sorry. For new graduates without internship experience, where would you recommend we start, especially in fields that require prior experience?
So I did answer that one. That was the one where I was saying a lot of times we have skills we don't know we have. And so it would be best for that person to schedule an appointment so we can talk about where they've been and where they're going, because that's going to be very specific. But there's ways we can highlight projects, highlight what you're doing at school, and go from there. Okay. Okay. Is there any more questions? Because I'm going to go over this a little more with some more slides, so I may be able to answer more questions in a few. And I apologize for my raspy voice. I'm not feeling the best, but I am still here. Okay, here are some research tips which we kind of went over. When you are doing your research on the company, you don't just want to look up the basics. You can look up what's their vision statement or what's their mission statement. What achievements has this company had that you can talk about that maybe relates to you? Or maybe what personal experiences have you had? Like, did you have an interaction with this company yourself, maybe when you were a kid or with your family, and that particular situation stood out to you? Any way that you can make a connection between them and you, use that to your advantage. That's how you're going to highlight yourself and make yourself stand out. Find out what the company goals are and what's the company culture like. Check some reviews, some employer reviews, but don't get so caught up in that because sometimes people write reviews and they go off on rants because of one bad situation that happened to them. You have to make your own judgment. But remember to also do some research on the industry, learn the verbiage of the industry that you're going into. And you'll learn that through working experience, but there's ways to research it as well. I typically like to, when I want to learn about, let's just say, a particular job that I want to apply for, if I'm not ready to actually apply yet, but I want to get some information, I will use job boards like Indeed or LinkedIn to actually research different jobs. And I'll pay attention to company names and I'll pay attention to the requirements for the jobs so that I know um, if there's like a trend in what everybody with these jobs is asking for. So if you look at 5 or 6 job descriptions and all of them are saying that they want you to have a specific certification, 9 times out of 10, that might be something you need to look into beforehand. Doing research actually saves you a lot of work on the front end because you don't want to spend a lot of time putting in all these applications for these places only to find out that the reason you're not getting a call back isn't because you're not really qualified, but because you don't have or meet all of the requirements, and that's why they're not calling you. So the more research you do, the more time you're going to save yourself. Now, prepping for the interview is something that I believe helps a lot of people reduce the nervousness that comes with interviewing. I always say this, and this may or may not help, but treat every interview like a conversation. So the same way that I'm talking to you guys, the people on the other side of the interview are humans just like you. And the absolute worst that can happen is that, hey, you don't get the job. And that's going to happen down the line. So you have to be okay with hearing no sometimes. But you still want to go into the interview with your best foot forward. You want to prepare and you want to be able to speak to your skill set and your abilities in the interview. But don't be afraid of them saying you didn't get the job, because when one door closes, another one always opens. And when a job is for you, it's not going to be for anybody else. Nothing can block that if it's really for you. So don't lose sight of that. Now, prepping for the interview, like I mentioned before, it starts with that research, researching the company. So when they say, why do you want to work for us? You need to know something about the company to be able to speak on why them. But you also need to know about yourself so that you can align them with yourself. Whenever you do have an interview scheduled, whether it be virtual or in person, it's best to find out and prepare to either get there in advance if it's in person. But if it's virtual, you need to make sure that whatever platform you're interviewing on, that you already have it downloaded. Always have a backup plan. So if you plan to do the interview on your laptop, what happens if your laptop starts acting up? What's your backup plan? Is it going to be your tablet? What is it going to be? But do all of this before the interview. When I say before, I don't mean 10 minutes before. I mean like a day or so before. The sooner the better. Prepare a list of interview questions. We already discussed that, and have them written out for the interview. You're not creating interview questions while they're talking and you're trying to listen. You want to have this already prepared so that you go in ready. Also bring paper, pen, So you can take notes, because typically the first interview is them introducing themselves. They're going to give you the rundown of the position. And if you're going through multiple interviews, that information is going to all start to run together. So you want to take specific notes on everything that they tell you so that you have it. And sometimes taking notes helps you create new interview questions that you didn't even think to ask. Also, always take copies of your resume. If it's virtual, that's different. But if you're going in person, when you show up, even though they already saw your resume, when you show up and you have copies of your resume for every single person that's in that interview, that shows that you're prepared and you're ready for whatever they're about to present to you. Pack any required documents with you. So resume will be one. I always like to have everything. I have my references with me. I have my school transcripts with me. Because sometimes the interview can go so well that they're ready to move forward immediately. And so they're like, the sooner you can get everything to me. But if you have everything right now and you want the job, you can jumpstart that process just by being prepared. And then sometimes, depending on the industry, they may ask for other documents, but you'll know in advance. If the employer tells you to bring something specific, make sure you have that specific thing that they're asking you for, and don't show up without it. Always pick your interview outfit or outfits in case you want to have a backup plan, again, before the interview. Have it ironed before. Try it on to make sure it fits before the interview. And not 10 minutes before. We're talking again, maybe a day or so before. Make sure your shoes are comfortable. And always arrive to your interview early, because early means on time. That's, if you follow that rule of thumb, it will help you in every situation. If you arrive on time, you're late. If you arrive early, you're on time. Now, let's talk about attire, because I can tell that we don't understand this just by looking around sometimes, but we have to talk about it. So when you're going for an interview, you're dressing business professional. If you're in doubt about what you should wear, remember it's always better to overdress than to underdress. But when it's coming to an interview, always dress business professional, because you're there to handle business and you want them to take you seriously. And how you show up and how you carry yourself is a reflection of you. And they are looking at that. So when we say business professional, remember sharp, clean, and neat. Blazers, suits, collar shirts, button-ups. Avoid, and I know we're moving into different times, but avoid showing a lot of tattoos and or visible piercings. So if your things that you have going on is covered, that's one thing. But don't try to intentionally showcase that. And the reason is you want the focus to be on what you have to say and not what you look like. Lead with neutral colors, no loud prints. So like my earrings, this shirt that I have on is very loud because that's my personality. But also keep in mind that I already got the job, so I'm good. But when you're in the interview, you want the focus to be on what you have to say. Avoid flashy jewelry. Wear clothes that are tailored for your body. I don't think I need to go in depth with that. Hopefully I don't, but if you do have questions about that, you can always email me. Because what one person can wear, someone else may not be able to wear. So wear something that's form-fitting for what you bring to the table. And form-fitting does not mean tight. It just means tailored to your body. No shorts, no short skirts, which is typically way above the knee. No jeans, no sweats, no hoodies, no flip-flops, and no crop tops. And make sure that, going back to the making sure clothes are tailored for your body, clothes that are too tight can be oftentimes revealing, and that's for males and females. So try not to wear things that are so tight that if you sneeze, a button is going to pop off your shirt. You want to be comfortable in the interview, and if stuff is not fitting right, you're not going to be comfortable. Now, keep in mind that we can help you with this. I didn't mention this before, but we help you guys in career coaching sessions in person while you're enrolled in school. But we also work with alumni students. So when you guys graduate, you're still welcome to schedule as many career coaching appointments with us as you want. We do have a career closet on campus, and you do not have to have an appointment to visit our career closet. You will just need to come into the Career Center. If you can email in advance, it's helpful, just so that we can expect you and prepare to take you down. But we're never going to tell a student no as far as being able to visit our career closet. And our career closet is located in the Basic Needs Center, but you still have to come see us because we have the key to get in there. If you want to donate clothes to the career closet, you also have that option. Just bring your clothes to our career center, male, female clothing, it doesn't matter, and we will take it to the closet. Now, also keep in mind that if you don't find something that you're looking for, we do have outside referral sources for males and females. So if you don't find something with us, we'll help you find something elsewhere. And I think that covers everything. Oh, you don't have to bring the clothes back either. And we get really nice donations. So I'm not talking about nasty looking stuff. I'm talking, we have faculty always donating brand new name brand stuff sometimes. And we have shoes, belts, and everything. Rainisha, did you have a question?
Yes, you have a question in the chat. It says, oh, where did it go? A resume post-graduation, should it still be 1 page long?
Good question. Somebody should have been in my other one. This must be a CHSS student. So good question. If it's better to have a 1 page resume, why? Employers are going to look at your resume for less than 10 seconds before they decide if they're going to keep reading it anyway. Now, some of us, like the student before mentioned, she has extensive amount of experience. If you're going to do a 2 page resume, it needs to be 2 full pages of relevant jobs. And again, we can help you figure this out because resume writing is not common sense, it's a skill. So if you're not sure, don't be afraid to just schedule an appointment with us and we'll show you how to do it. Because there's a way to like bring your relevant job to the top and create a section like other experience on your resume where you're still listing your other jobs, but not in bullet point format. So you at least let the employer know like, hey, I've been working, but I want you to pay attention to my relevant jobs. And we can show you how to do that. So if you've just worked all these different jobs just because you've been working, keep in mind too that employers do pay attention to employment gaps. So because you guys are students, if you worked a job that you don't necessarily want to list, you can always mention that during that time period, you were focused on your studies so that you can explain that gap and go from there. Does that answer the question? Hopefully.
And then you have one more question. I'm not really sure by what they mean, but hopefully they will chime in. It just says, how will I know what the best way to go is? Ms. Morgan, if you could share more details so that Ms. Tiffany could answer that question for you, that would help.
Maybe she didn't hear you. Well, if you
She hasn't put anything there, so I'll just stay on the lookout for you.
okay, if she ends up hearing you, I can always go back. Well, before I move forward, any questions about the professional attire in the workplace? Okay. Okay. All right, Joycelyn. Joycelyn's on it. Thank you, girl. Types of interview questions that you may see in an interview. So we have traditional questions where the focus is on your strengths and weaknesses. And then we have behavioral interview questions, which are the most common. These are the questions where they ask you, tell me about a time when you had a difficult situation. What did you do? What was the end result? This is the most common type of interview question. When you are hit with a behavioral question, you want to remember this method. STAR, situation, task, action, result. This is telling you how to respond to a behavioral question. So whenever they ask you to tell them about a time, the first thing you tell them is what happened. Now keep in mind, you want to tell a story, but you want to get to the point of the story. So sometimes we go back to that place or that memory and then we ramble. But just keep the main thing the main thing. What happened? What was the issue? The T is task. So what was the challenge? What were you faced with? The action is what did you do? And then the result is the part that everybody forgets. Just remember, don't forget the R in STAR. And that's when you tell the employer what was the result after you did what you did. So don't just tell the story and the situation. Tell them what happened with that customer or with that situation. And everything you mention is going to be positive. So if they do ask that question about the difficult time, briefly mention the difficult situation, but avoid going into detail about, oh, my manager tried me, or they thought I was something to play with. Because sometimes we can go down that path, but in the interview, you're not there to highlight anything negative. You're there to highlight positivity. So even if you did have a really bad experience in the workplace, there's always something positive that you could have learned from it. Even if secretly you learn to never ever do that type of work again. You don't say that in an interview. You just tell them, this is the task that I was hit with. I had this project going on at the same time. I asked my supervisor which tasks would they like me to prioritize first. I asked for the deadlines. These are the steps that I took to get it done. And then as a result, we were able to not only get the account that we were trying to get or whatever it is, or provide customer service, but that person continues to shop with us to this day, or my supervisor got to see my strengths through this project and she promoted me to whatever position or something like that. But everything is positive. So situation, task, action, result. Any questions about the STAR method? This takes practice, by the way. So we do mock interviews if you want to practice some fun interview questions. That's what we do all day. And if we go back to traditional, these questions are the questions where, like, for example, they may say, tell me your weaknesses. You know our strengths, but tell me your weaknesses. The key to this type of question is to make your weaknesses sound like strengths. So I'm someone who's goal-oriented, and sometimes I get so focused on achieving the goal that I forget to give myself credit for the things that I've already accomplished. And that's something that I'm working on. That makes your weakness sound like a strength. Another example could be whenever I'm given a task, I like to get things done, and I forget that I have a team that I can ask for help. And so I'm working on asking for help whenever I have tasks that I need to get done. So that makes you sound like you're somebody who's an overachiever. And it makes your weakness sound like a strength. Now, when you're interviewing, I want you guys to remember this as well. Listen attentively. Even if you're nervous, listen to the questions that they're asking you. And if you don't hear the question, be okay with saying, could you please repeat the second part of the question? Or can you repeat the question because I want to make sure that I answer the question thoroughly. If you answer your interview questions with a smile even if you're not on camera, you're going to sound more genuine in your answer than you would if you don't smile. I don't know why my camera keeps going on. I'm sorry. Remember to treat the interview like a conversation. So this is just another human being that you're having a conversation with about what you bring to the table so that you can relax a little bit. Remember to always respond to every interview question with positive responses only. And again, I could teach you. And all in all, you're answering the question of why this employer should hire you. Like, why you? And that's what you're telling them in the interview. Now, I want to talk about briefly career steadiness, because this is something that we see every day. When I say we, I'm talking about the staff that work here. Some of you guys may be peer mentors, some of you guys may be student workers, or you may just be working somewhere off campus. But you have to remember these things. It's not just about getting the job, but you have to maintain a certain level of professionalism after you get the job. So when you're emailing your employer, don't just be so quick to get to the point that you forget to greet them. So start every email with a good morning, Mr. or Ms., or good afternoon, greeting, something. Say hello before you get into what it is. And I always like to say, I hope you're having an amazing Thursday. And then you explain whatever it is that you want to explain in the email. That's how you communicate. Now, and then of course, close the email as well. Communicate when you cannot come to work, when you're going to be late somewhere. You need to let the employer know. There's this whole ghosting thing that we're doing that is highly unprofessional. And I want you guys to really hear me when I say this. Because remember, we're networking. Networking doesn't stop just because we got the job. So even if you don't want this job now, it might end up to be an opportunity later. So don't ghost people. Pick up the phone and call people to let them know what's going on. Hey, good morning. I'm so sorry. I'm not feeling well today. I won't be in. Let them know when you're coming in. Speak up and ask for help when you need it. But communication is very important in the workplace. Also, be willing to cross-train. Cross-training is for your benefit. If you're entry level trying to move up, don't be afraid to learn something different outside of the scope of what you do so that you can be trusted with new responsibilities. And that's how you can also make yourself stand out and move up in the workplace. And limit phone use, because I know we like to text and do TikToks and stuff, but when you're on the job, that is not the time to be sitting twiddling your thumbs. If you have downtime, figure out something constructive to do. But sitting twiddling on the phone is very unprofessional. Rainisha has a question.
Yes, Chantel asked, what should they do when companies ghost them following an interview?
That's a good question. So it's a good idea to, after you interview for a job, maybe give it 24 to 48 hours and send a thank you note. Again, you're going to greet them. Good morning, good afternoon. I enjoyed my interview for the blank position. Maybe highlight something that you discussed in the interview. And then continue to reiterate your interest in the role and let them know that they can reach out to you if they have any other questions about your qualifications. Now, will that completely stop them from ghosting you? No. You cannot control what the employer does, but remember, how you lead and show yourself in a company is your reputation. You're the one that needs the opportunity. So if that company ghosts you, then 9 times out of 10, that's not a company that you'd want to work for anyway, because if that's how you're going to be handled, then you're probably going to deal with other issues as well. So it might actually be a good thing that you see that, because you might be being blocked from something that would have been a headache in the long run. But how you show up, even if they ghost you, you don't do that to them because you are our professional. Any questions? Does that clarify, Chantel? Yeah, I've gotten a job before with that follow-up email thing. Okay. Now I just wanted to show this one more time because this went viral on TikTok. And I like to share this only because this is real talk. This is really what employers had to say about recent college graduates. This is why I'm always preaching all the things that I'm preaching in my job. This is why you guys need us. These are the things that, and it may not be you, if it don't apply, let it fly. But all of these concepts are important. And sometimes we're not taught these things, and that's okay. But you have a career center who is here to help you develop yourself professionally. So take advantage of us. And that's it, y'all. I know I hit it right on the nail, didn't I? 6:30, let's go. If you guys need to contact us, you can email me. If you're with CPS, you email Tiffany Register, which is me. If you're with CHSS, you can email Miss Camille at this email address. And this is our main phone number, the 8980, that reaches all of us. Rainisha, is this for the question in the chat about the negotiating the salary?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so my rule is I let the first interview slide. And then if we're in the second interview and we're nearing the end of the interview and we still haven't discussed salary, the way that you can ask is when you have your list of interview questions, try to let that be towards the end of your question so you're not leading with the, okay, but what about the money? Even though that's important. Ask your other questions first and then kind of ask that towards the end. And you could say, what is the salary range for this position? That way you know the minimum and the maximum. Ranisha, you probably have some feedback on that too, if you want to share.
So typically how I have done it when negotiating a salary is I wait until the job is extended to me. And I look at most jobs will put a range of what they will pay you. And I go back and I check my experience to make sure, like, if I'm going to ask for the top amount, that I have all the qualifications to get that top amount. Usually what I will do is go for the highest first. And sometimes they're willing to maybe not meet the highest, but meet me halfway between more than the initial offer, but less than the highest amount. And so that still gets me to a comfortable area that I am okay with. Now there are times where I have experienced that it just wasn't enough. Like the distance was too far. The hours didn't align to what I needed them to since I'm in school. And so the salary that they were paying, it didn't meet my standard of living costs. And so I just ended up turning down the job and went for something else. There will also be cases where they might not be willing to meet your salary negotiations, which I have had that as well. However, the professional development, the insurance, those were things that they were willing to offer me that would benefit me in the long run, that made me stay with the offered salary. So you just kind of have to weigh your opportunities, but definitely wait until they actually offer you a job, because you can't be negotiating salaries and they haven't even offered you the job yet.
Very true. And I'm sorry, I actually just realized I did not answer her question. I answered when to bring up salary, not how to negotiate. So for me, I go higher. I have a number in my head because I know the range, but always go higher than the number in my head, because if they're going to negotiate, they're always going to come down. So even if they come down, we end up back at the number that I had in my head already. So that's what I do.
You got an extension question. Could they also negotiate benefits like hybrid work, sick days, PTO, continued education during this time or after they mention it?
So typically, like the benefits and all of that, that's tied in, that's like done through HR, and that's like a set thing through the company. Um, I've never seen anyone try to negotiate their work days or sick days, because like I said, it's kind of like a part of the package. But know what you need and ask them about their interview, about their benefits in the interview question as one of your interview questions, so that you'll know. Now, hybrid work might be something that they discuss. That's different. A lot of times if it's hybrid, they're gonna list that in the job description, because that's something that's gonna make their job description stand out and attract more applicants. Um, but as far as sick days, PTO and stuff like that, that's typically non-negotiable. Thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. And I am here if you need me. I also assist with CHSS, so if you try to schedule an appointment and you see my name, you're welcome to still schedule with me. So we are here for you guys. All right. Let me see, we have any other questions? Thank you, guys. Thank you. Don't wait till you 2 seconds from graduating to ask me to come do your resume either. I'll still help, but it's better not to wait till the last minute.
Thank you guys for coming. Thanks, Tiffany, for another good presentation. It was really insightful. Thank you.
Thank you guys for having me. I'll be here. Until next time.